Okay, we left off with number 7. Now let's continue on to number 8. Now this time we're going to take a mixed number. We're going to subtract it by another. Now it's the same process where we have to focus on these, and then we'll take care of the whole numbers. And if you look at them, we don't have the same denominator, so they're not like fractions, so we have to come up with our lowest common denominator. And hopefully you're starting to get the hang of this, and then you can maybe see immediately that 9 is the lowest common denominator. Now we're going to set it up to get our equivalent fractions with the lowest common denominator of 9. Okay, and we just go through the same process, which is 3 times 3 is 9, so 3 times 1 is 3. And then 1 times 9 is 9, so 1 times 7 is 7. So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite that. So it was 7 and 7 over 9 subtracted by 4 and 3 over 9. Now when we subtract 7 from 3, we end up with 4 over 9, and 7 minus 4 is 3. So that is our final answer right here. And also for this problem, there's going to be that part B where it's asking you to estimate. So if you recall from problem number 6, we're going to look at these fractions 7, 9, and 3, 9. So the first one, 7, 9, it's in that range. Remember, we said from 0 to 4 and 5 to 9. If it's in the range from 5 to 9, we know we're going to count up. So we're going to take this 7, it's going to count up to an 8. Now looking at the next fraction down below, we have a 3 in the numerator, which falls here in this range. So this 4 is not going to count up. So we're going to write out this 4. We're going to subtract that, and we end up with the answer 4. So that's our answer for estimating, and that's the process. All right, let's move over to number 9. Now, number 9, we have a whole number, 7, and we have to subtract it by 3 and 1, 7. So the first thing that should come to your mind is, okay, well, I don't know how to subtract the fractions because I'm missing a fraction right there. Well, here's the process. We're going to borrow from that 7. So how do we handle that task? Well, we know to get a like fraction, we need a denominator of 7. So we can take 1 from 7 and make it a 6. And then if you add it to 7 over 7, these two will add up to 7. So we're not changing the value, we're changing the appearance. Because remember, 7 over 7 is equal to 1. And 6 plus 1 is 7. So we're going to rewrite it using this. So I'm going to go over here and write 6 and 7 over 7 subtracted by 3 and 1, 7. Now we have the same denominator. We subtract, we end up with the result of 6 over 7, and the whole number would be 3 and 6/7. So this is a technique of borrowing. Whenever we're dealing with mixed numbers and we're missing this fraction. And again, this one here was number 9 in your homework. Okay, let's move on to number 10. 10 is just, it looks like you're just reading and writing out the problem. So I'm going to skip that one. But let's go to number 11. So 11 is a word problem. And we have Tucson. And then we have this next location. I don't have the word problem in front of me, but I know there are 2 fractions. We're going to be subtracting those. And it's the same process. We need to go and find so let me just bring this word problem up quickly. So it's Tucson's average rainfall is 11 1/4 inches, and Yuma's is 2 2/5 inches. And how much more rain on the average does Tucson get more than Yuma? So that would be a subtraction problem. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set it up. So going back to this, so we have Tucson and Yuma. It's the average rainfall, and we need to find out the difference. So when we subtract these, you can see the first thing we need to do is find our lowest common denominator for these numbers in our denominator, which is 4 and 5. And if you can recall the process, you should come up with a lowest common denominator of 20. So again, to come up with that, and I'll just go ahead and write this one out. We have 4 and 5, and we have to go through our multiples. 4 times 1, 4 times 2, 4 times 3, 4 times 4, and then 4 times 5. Oops. And then the same process with 5. 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, 5 times 4. And then you can see here's the lowest common multiples. All right, so now we know our lowest common denominator is 20. So I'm just going to write that here. Lowest common denominator equals 20. Now we're going to go through the process to find our equivalent fractions. Let me just go ahead and write these out in black. So I've had 1/4 equals, and here's our 20. And then we have 2 over 5, and that's equal to 20. All right, so now we know that 4 times 5 is 20, so 4 times 2 is 8. And we know 5 times 4 is 20, so 5 times 1 is 5. Now we have our equivalent fractions. I'm going to take them over here. And I have 11, and I have 5 over 20. And then we have subtracted by 2, and then we have 8 over 20. All right, now here's another new thing that you must learn. If you notice that this top number is smaller than the bottom number, it's the same thing when we're subtracting. We had something like 20, let me go with this. If we had 23 subtracted by 18, we learned that we had to borrow. Back in the old traditional days, we've learned that method. Same process here. So just like we did in our previous problem, I'm just going to go ahead and borrow. All right. So to do that, we take it down to 10. And then we have plus 20 over 20, because we still want to make sure it's equivalent to 11 and 5 over 20. And then we add in the 5 over 20. So that's how that's going to look. So we still want it to have the same value, but a different appearance. So with this in mind, how we get this 5 to count up, we're going to take these two fractions and add them. So when we rewrite this problem, we're going to rewrite it as 10 and 25 over 20. Subtracted by 2 and 8 over 20. And then you can now subtract out the problem, and our final answer is 8 and 17 over 20, and that is in simplest form. So the trick here was go through the normal process, find your lowest common denominator and your equivalent fractions, but the goal was then to borrow, because we had a lower fraction on the top, and you want to use this process right here. Now, I know in the previous problem, I showed you that we had 7, and then we took it from 6 and 7 over 7. Well, this one's a little different because we have 11 and 5 over 20. We still need to do something with this, and that's when you just add it in. All right, so moving over to number 13. All right, so number 13. We have -2 1/3 multiplied by 2 5/8. All right, so all we have to do is just convert those to improper fractions and then multiply across. So the first one, we take 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1. That gives us 7 over 3 multiplied. And the next one will be 8 times 2, which is 16. And then you add on 5, and that'll give us 21 over 8. So I'll just write over here so you can see. That was 2 times 8 plus 5 all over 8. And that's how we end up getting our improper fractions. We just convert it from mixed to improper. Now all we have to do is multiply across. So -7 times 21 all over 3 times 8. And I look, can I reduce anything? Can I factor it out? I cannot, so I'm just going to multiply across. Don't forget your negative, and you end up with 147 over 24. And then we use that long division we've learned, and that's 24 into 147. And whatever you do, don't forget you're going to end up with a negative answer. So you could always write negative as you're coming up with your numbers. So if you put in 147 divided by 24, you end up with a whole number of 6. 24 times 6 is 144. I'm going to subtract that out. You end up with a remainder of 3. So we have 3 over 24, like that. So let me just write it up here. Negative 6 and 3 over 24. The only problem is, and let me erase that, 6 and 3 over 24. And again, all I did was 24 into 147. This was the process over here. 6, and this was 144, remainder of 3. Now, the only thing with this is not in simplest terms. So to get it in simplest terms, I'm going to write -6, and then we can factor out a 3 from that 24, so it's 3 times 8. And these divide out to 1. So our final answer is -6 and 1/8. So there's one extra step here we needed to take.